Let's talk about the many lies that have been told about the Igbo people. One of the reasons I do my broadcast on this Igbo consciousness is because I've come to understand there is a deliberate attempt to discredit the Igbos. And for the fact that I'm an Igbo person, I need to rise up to the occasion and make sure we debunk so many lies that have been said. We know that the media in the past have carried misinformation on events that has tagged the Igbo people as the killers of the outlaw Sokoto, that has tagged the Nzogu coup and Igbo coup. Many things led to that. The emirs of the north, with their plan to deal with those that were not fitting into their agenda, those of their northern contemporaries that were not aligning with their agenda, their northern enemies, led to the coup that Nzogu carried out with some of his men, who were largely young officers and also from other tribes. They tagged it an Igbo coup, never alluding to the fact that it had a northern influence. A northern influence inspired the Nzogu coup. We have had other coups in Nigeria, the one carried on by Dia, the one carried on by Buhari and others. Nobody called it a Yoruba coup, or nobody called it a Fulani or Hausa coup. But because of misinformation and the plan to tag the Igbo people an evil race, or to make sure they are subdued and subjugated, there's so many misinformation flying around. Let's start with the misinformation of today. Let's leave the one that happened in past. We are going to revisit that in the nearest future. Let's start with the NSAS protest. Now, media, both even BBC, the media, the Nigerian media, some journalists, some people in publications wrote that the coup was sponsored by the Igbo. It was an Igbo coup. Sorry, the protest was sponsored by the Igbo. The Igbo had an agenda through Nnamdi Kanu to destroy Lagos and all that Lagos had. The Igbos were the ones who went into the palace of the Oba of Lagos and destroyed everything there. The Igbos sponsored that protest. That is what we had. For instance, let's assume that it was during the traditional era whereby we didn't have social media. You'll have seen the kind of lies that would have been perpetrated on the Igbo people. So you told me that the directive from Mazi Nnamdi Kanu was what made the NSAS people come out and start destroying whatever they were destroying. Remember, the shops that were destroyed, most of the shops were owned by the Igbo people. And the Igbo people literally did not really join that protest. Most of them had shops. That's why any protest in Nigeria, you see, these guys are reluctant to come out to join the protest. But the media in Lagos and some other mediums, other media houses, came out and said this was sponsored by the Igbos. They are trying to overthrow Lagos. That's the narrative. Take it back to Nzogu coup. That would have been the news. That would have been what everybody would have said. This is history. It is an Igbo coup. Because the media said so. They never saw that there was an Operation No Mercy that was planned by the northern emirs to take out their rivals in government, their northern rivals in government. Nobody looked at that. They decided to misinform the people. When you look at Oputa panel and some of the revelations, you see the misinformation on the Igbos was state-sponsored. It was a deliberate thing from all sides. The Yoruba and the North decided to join hands together and make sure that they tell lies about the Igbo people, which led to the killings of over 3.5 million Igbos in the North. Or, let's say, the war, the misinformation on the Igbos led to the killing of millions of Igbos that led to the civil war and all that we have today. Because some people believe that the Igbos are dominant And they looked at the actions of Kaduna Nzogu, who with other officers carried out these attacks. They planned to misinform the public and call that an Igbo coup. Now my question is, when Buhari did his own, why don't you call it a Fulani or Hausa coup? And Dia, who begged for his life, why didn't you call that a Yoruba coup? Why would you call that of Nzogu, who is from Delta State, in today's Delta State, an Igbo coup? Now when you ask some Delta people, they said we are not part of Biafra, we are not Igbos. But somebody from Delta that did not come from the 5 plots of lands, which is Abia, Imo, Ebonyi, Enugu, and Anambra. This guy is nowhere from these places, but you want to target an Igbo coup. It's unfortunate that the misinformation we had in the past is repeating itself today. I give you an example of the answers. Now the protest. We're having a protest. The protest. Now the media took it up. The news was flying. Looking at some southwest mediums and people who speak for the Southwesterners. The historians came out and said the protest is being sponsored by the Obedient, by P2B, IPOB, and what have you. Another misinformation. If it were to be those days, those traditional days, whereby there's no social media, I tell you, this will have been in news, will have been the truth, the fact, on ground. You just see that people just put it. Obedience are led to sponsor protest against Tinubu. That is what you have seen there. If there were no social media to counter these claims, counter this misinformation from the Western media, you see, we'll have been in a very bad situation today. But thank God for social media, and thank God that the Igbos are standing up to the occasion, investing in the media. One of the undoing of the Igbo people is that they did not invest in the media. You were trying to recover from the war, from the damage the war had caused them. They were trying to recover from it. That is why they didn't invest in the media, because the media shaped the narrative. The media tells you what to think. The media somehow is what gives you the templates of history. So looking at, if you watch the Oputa panel very well, and when they were grilling some of these generals, you will come to understand that most of this information are just put out there to give a bad name to the Igbo people. And it's unfortunate that at this point in time, it's being passed from generation to generation, and it got to a point in time that history was banned in schools. Why? Flimsy excuses. These informations are still out there. They just decided that the young generation should not know what happened. The truth. What happened. The misinformation is too much. How many lies are there? How many lies are there? Now, insecurity in the Southeast. The government sponsors some guys and target on a certain group of people. Now, the world did not recognize these guys as terrorists, but the Nigerian government, under a Fulani president, which is Buhari, decided to tag the IPOB terrorists. But the world, in a sense, did not see the activities as terrorists. Those people that were carrying out terrorist activities, terrorism on the Nigerian state, was identified by the world. You're even tagged for number 4th in the terrorist index of the world. That is the Boko Haram. The government of the day, they were reluctant to tag them terrorists. It came as they had to pressure Buhari and his co to tag the Boko Haram as terrorists. These are the people that in the next 10-20 years, if we didn't have the social media, they will have tagged these guys terrorists and written all sort of rubbish, because they control the media, they control the narrative, they are censoring the media. No wonder Twitter had to be banned at a point in time under the Buhari's regime. So we as Igbos now, we should start taking advantage of the media, of the social media. Invest in media. Go and start reading about the history of what led to because the genesis of all this problem now, the hatred on Igbos and everything, the genesis of the problem is the Nzogu coup, which was tagged an Igbo coup. The bitterness of the North is that they killed the Sir Adna of Sokoto. Said it was the Igbos that killed. Even a pastor, lettering pastor, Tunde Bakare, said that a curse was laid on the Igbos because of the crime. So that is the genesis of all that is happening in Nigeria today. If that is not corrected, if we don't tell the truth, I don't know why people will just stand up and start misinforming Nigerians, stand up and start giving people false narratives over a tribe. And you see them go to church, you see them set up buildings and call it church, religious, and all of you. And I wonder, some of these people are deaconesses, some of these people are pastors. And I wonder, is it the same Christianity that we all practice, that these people are practicing? Over the years, you carried misinformation on a tribe just to push them out, because I believe that the Igbos were the pace setters in Nigerian history. Politics, education, whatever have you. They were top guys in the army. They went to school. They were educated. They were well placed in the country then. And there was this jealousy from the northern bloc, political bloc. Yes, there was this jealousy from both the south and the northern political bloc, that these guys are taking over everything. So they saw that Nzegu coup as an opportunity to carry their evil agenda on the Igbo people. It is all about jealousy. I give an example of the NSAS protest. Now, Lagos state government said they didn't die, but monies were given to people. Where are the bodies? This is an example of misinformation, how people rewrite history by lying. Total lie. Igbos were destroying BRT here and there in Lagos State. Lagos State media carried it. They were destroying these things here and there. They were saying all sorts. Some people who were journalists were even saying the same thing. Some notable persons in Yoruba land were saying the same thing. The last protest, there was a raid. Shops were destroyed. The last protest, the End Bad Governance protest, shops were destroyed at Bode Thomas. And ask me, who are the owners of shops? Igbos own majority of the shops at Bode Thomas. Igbos were affected. The Yoruba guys, the Touch, most of them are Yorubas, they attacked and looted Igbo shops because of misinformation that it is Igbos, it is P2B, the obedience, that are sponsoring the End Bad Governance protest, irrespective of the fact that a Shore was standing as a spearhead, a Yoruba man was standing as a spearhead. They ignored that fact and decided to pin it on the Igbos. This misinformation is just much. I just blame Ohaneze. They had a lot of work to do. They had a lot of corrections to do. They would have invested in media, invested in press conferences. There should be an institute studying Igbo history. There should be something like that. Igbo awareness and Igbo history. Every young child should learn about Igbo history before he becomes 11. He should know about Igbo history. Because I started reading and I've seen that so many lies by the Western Yoruba media against the Igbo. And the thing that pains me so much is that they know the truth, but they deliberately will misinform Nigerians. I will put it to you that what killed this Adna of Sokoto was the Operation No Mercy from the northern emirs that led to Nzogu wanting to lay off all these top leaders to install Awolowo as the president. They somehow found it, they somehow wanted to link it, Igbo, Ife Ajuna, this, that, and that. But the intention was to install Awolowo as president. But at the end of the day, they were backstabbing these guys front, left, and center. Some people may have been doing some shoddy jobs. They decided not to, maybe, I'm not sure, because the narrative is that Igbo officers sent to the southeast did not kill theirs. Probably they aided them to escape, while others were killed in other sections of the country. Now, then that narrative was now spinned and said, because of this that happened, it is an Igbo coup. If you have a PhD, or you're a professor, or you went to school, and you have a master's degree, or you actually went to the four walls of the classroom of the university, and you look at the actions of some people and some persons, and you attribute it to the actions of a whole range of people that led to the killing of 3.5 million. What if the actions of Dia was meted on the Yoruba people and they took action on the Yoruba people? Dia faced it. Buhari and co, they say, you officer, that it is a go ahead. They give you direction, you refuse to go through that direction, you are court-martialed, you are killed. The officer is a military regime. It's not a regional regime. It's a military. The military gave orders. The people carrying that coup, they are military. Order is order. So why do you want to say it is Igbo or this or that? The officers, in quote, may not have carried out the actions, the directive given to them. The officers should face it. That is how to build institutions. When you bring in such sentiment, you cannot build institutions with that. That's why no institution in Nigeria can work. Anybody that becomes president, he reflects his tribe on all institutions. He reflects his sentiment. He reflects his bias on the institutions that is in Nigeria. That's why you see most Yorubas are there. When Buhari was there, most Fulani or Hausa Fulanis, most Muslims were there. All over, pinpointed. So you cannot say that is an Igbo coup, except you want to misinform and lie. They asked Ahmed Ali questions. He could not ascertain the answers. These people just come and write book, misinform Nigerians. There is this jealousy and there is this notion that these Igbo officers are high-handed, may want to take over Nigeria. That is the notion that makes people want to hate the Igbo people. But this sentiment cannot stand the test of time. It does not warrant that you deliberately start killing people, civilians on the streets of some little for instance, will I tag the action of Tinubu on all Yorubas? That Tinubu is a drug this, and I'll say all Yorubas. Does it make sense? Don't I look stupid with such tag? Don't I look stupid? Don't I look stupid? That is how these generals, these people that are distorting history, information, misinformation, that's how they look stupid. To us, when we read this history, we found out that this is a calculated attempt to denigrate the Igbos. Never again will it happen. Many of us, I know many of my kind, many of my Igbo people that went to school, that are really intelligent, that are taking up the task to revisit the history of this country, even though it was not a subject in school, it was not offered in school. Especially these things that cause bias, these things that is dividing us. That is especially that Igbo coup, in quote, the one that Kaduna and Zogu carried out with his men. That is the genesis of all of this. But that something led to that coup, which is the northern emirs that actually instigated that coup. And some northern politicians, they know this. Just because of the jealousy, the Igbo race is getting ahead of every other people. They were becoming fantastic. They were taking over the military, taking over the civil service. Men, they were just wonderful. And their success threatened other tribes. That is what is happening in Lagos also. Somebody would tell his neighbor, who is an Igbo man who owns a house, that I will inherit your house. Imagine the mentality. Imagine what is going on. When you look at the NSAS revelation, 100 million, no 100 million, there's a certain lady, Oniru. She's just gaslighting. When you look at her statement, gaslight, that is what these guys do for a living. Gaslight and misinform. They misinform There's nothing. The agenda is just to denigrate, bring down. Look at what officials under Tinubu's government are doing deliberately, just to give Igbos a bad name, accusing somebody of some. They all accusations on P2B, but there's nothing that can hold water. These are the kind of people that were in charge of our media in the 1960s. What do you expect from them? You can go to a newspaper and just publish a report, and that stays. Nobody, it takes you to go back to the news medium to put a rebuttal, but that rebuttal will be censored by the government. But social media, the information comes straight. They can't control that information. That's why you can see what is happening today, revelations upon revelations, and our eyes are opened to so many things. Look at what's happening with Bobrisky and VDM. Look at just the mess happening all over the country, and the media just had to keep quiet, didn't say anything. So selective information and misinformation is what that have divided Nigeria and will never repair, because these guys are unwilling to accept the Igbo people as partners in Nigeria, because they believe that Igbos have what it takes to excel beyond expectation, and they are afraid of their success, and they are jealous. Jealousy, that's what is making these guys stand up against the Igbo people.